Bonjour, Michelle. Good morning to you. It's so nice to see you.
Thank
How are
you.
you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing great.
Oh, thank you. We see you. Oh, Michelle, let me start that way. Happy birthday to you.
That's
Happy
sweet.
birthday to you. Happy birthday to you, Michelle. Happy birthday to you.
Hey.
Woo! Welcome to you today.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
You do welcome. It was such a pleasure, and you said to me, so I could not resist to send you this little gift from France to you today.
Oh my gosh. That's so
Isn't,
sweet of you.
isn't it today?
Yesterday was my birthday.
Oh, it was yesterday. So, okay, let's say the time zone, we made it that it's still today for France, but we can celebrate with you today.
Awesome. Great. Great.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So it's such an honor and a pleasure, Michelle, to have you with us today on
Thank
this
you.
summit for healing the family tree. And when I mentioned that we will have a chance to have this interview with you today, so I said to our people, our audience, that you do represent several voices, but also the voice of people who are alive, the people who are from beyond, and also the what does represent the second chance, as you said. So you do represent today many voices.
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Yes. And I can give a little few words about you, and then we can talk with you for something you'd like to share with people about what is your journey. But what I can already share with our audience that you are an international best-selling author,
Yes.
award-winning filmmaker, and founder of Second Chance Secrets. I love that name. You are also professional training, which is a professional training center, Second Chance Secrets, and that enables coaches and healers and entrepreneurs to unleash their true brilliance so they can attract premium clients and make a difference in the world. For more than 25 years, so you as a doctor in psychology, you have been assisting smart men and women in recreate their lives after loss through a spiritual healing, psychosomatics and cognitive and Gestalt psychology, coaching, speaking, art, filming, and publishing. We mentioned that you are a best-selling author for several books already, by the way. So I can mention Breaking Barriers, which is the #1 international bestseller, and also Step into Your Brilliance, that I will mention a little bit more, and also Animal Legacies. Wow, congratulations to you. And this is only, of course, a few things that you accomplished already so far. I'd like just to say how we met. We met so by this book, Step into Your Brilliance, which is a collective book, an anthology, and that had the chance to be with you, a co-author on this book. And it was such an honor to me to meet you in person a few months after the book has been launched. And step by step, this is what we call serendipity. You gladly accepted, and this is very generous of yours because I know we have a time zone different to be with us today, and you have many activities. So welcome with us today, Michelle.
Thank you so much, Sophie.
Yeah. So, do you like to say a little bit how did you become the person you are today, speaking about second chances secret? Is there something in your life, an event, a situation, someone, something that led you to go on this purpose?
Oh, definitely. Yes. Because most of my life I lived unconsciously. I lived a pattern of behavior that I thought would ensure that I would get what I needed, which everybody needs, love. And at a very young age, I lost trust in the world providing me with that. So I decided to take my life in my own hands and manipulate the world so that I could get what I wanted. And that's what I've been learning through my journey, is how and why we do that. That at very young age, children, they experience something, it might not even be a huge disaster from, you know, the larger scheme of things, but from the point of view of an infant, it's devastating. And so my father, who I had bonded with, was transferred to Japan. And for, I don't know how many months, I was separated from him. And I had never bonded with my mother. And plus, she was trying to move a household to Japan. And this was traumatizing to me. And I developed this pattern of pleasing. And that became my mode of survival. The bad news is that it was successful, very, very successful in school. You can imagine, right? And so it took me a long time to realize that it was holding me back. And I had a series of wake-up calls, you might call them. First, I lost my very first teaching job at a college out in the Midwest. And then my husband, my first husband, left me for another woman. And my response was to run away to a spiritual retreat where work and relationships didn't matter, that the only thing that mattered was my connection with the divine. But the good news is that it reconnected me to source, to who I really am. However, what I have learned, and this is kind of the foundation of the book that I'm working on right now, is that we are spiritual beings having a human adventure, but we reside in these human bodies. And the body has its own agenda.
Yes, I can relate to that. There are these several agendas. We need to align. Sometimes it's not always easy, but indeed, yeah.
Sorry, let me get a little drink of water here.
Yes, for sure.
So for me, it's learning and developing the tools and practices that don't repress the body, don't distract the body, which are some of the things that we learn, or manage the universe, but actually become partners with this body. And then you're able to live more fully. You're able to live more yourself, authentically yourself.
And this is specifically what you do a lot. You explained to me a few days ago that you part of your work is also to help people to reconnect with their body. Most of the time we can live sometimes only in the head. We think that we feel our body, that we know our body, and sometimes we realize that we are not so much into our body. So I like also that very much about you, is that you have plenty of tools to share with people to facilitate their reconnection between mind, body, and spirit connection. Yeah.
What I do for my clients is I create the safe space for people to explore and rediscover who they really are. Because that, you know, if you've been traumatized as a child, whether your parents intended you to be traumatized or not, or you simply absorbed it through their behavior, there is a fear. That's the body part. There's a fear of being yourself. And how many times that shows up in the way in which you use a cutesy childish voice so people won't feel threatened by you, or you put on shields or armor to protect you. And what I create is that safe space so that people feel, especially that inner child that's been wounded, feels safe to come out.
Yeah, this is, and sometimes we have this word in French, so this is the being the woman child, for example, it can happen, or let's say it can also be as a man sometimes. And when we can feel sometimes at specific moments that our voice can change, and somehow it can be the voice of a little child in us. And in that moment, maybe we can be aware of something perhaps is going on and brings us back into this energy of a little child. Yes.
Or we aren't even in the energy, but we have learned from our childhood that having that cute little high level or is accepted more easily from some people. And so I've noticed I do a lot of speaking, and I
Yes.
work with a lot of other speakers, and I recognize it. There will be this, for me, what I'll do is I'll just get this effusive sound in my tone, but I've listened to others, it's kind of like, some will be like really sweet and, breathy, and other ones will be really kind of, I'm never going to talk about, and now we're going to do this. And this is all performance. This is all an effort, a habit, actually, because we don't even know that we're doing it, but a
Mhm.
habit that we learn to protect ourselves, to be safe, to make sure that people aren't going to get angry at us or give us a hard time. The trick is to first to realize you do it, and second of all, to have that emotional breakthrough that allows you to finally show up as yourself.
Wow. I understand that indeed. And sometimes it can be, we don't know why. We may even not know the person, but somehow in the energy field, we may feel, and the voice will change. It will adapt to our people in front of us. I like it. And to be aware of that, and that can come back to our emotions. So, how do I feel? What is going on? And it's not always easy to be aware of it. Sometimes it's for a matter of seconds or a little moment, and it's really, I feel, an effort. Is like a training a muscle to ask ourselves, how do I
Yes,
feel,
exactly.
by the way? Yeah.
Exactly. It is training a muscle. That's right. And sometimes you have to do it over and over and over again.
Yeah.
One of the things that I realized is I finally got to the point where I could speak as myself in front of an audience, that I could really be present because there they were and I was focusing on them. And then we get into this whole internet speaking,
Yes.
where you're speaking to this tiny little lens and you have no idea who's out there. And so you're kind of like, I'm blasting this out because I'm trying to reach those people out there that I can't see, And so I finally mastered that. And sometimes when I'm speaking and I see the group out there, like on a Zoom call where there are, 20 or 30 people,
Yes.
and maybe I'm back here a little bit, then somehow I raise my voice. And this is all the body. It's not the spirit, it's the body trying to reach, to be pleasing, to
Yes.
do what it needs to do.
Oh, and I thank you that you mentioned that, because it does also allow me right now to engage. I do invite you, people who are with us right now in direct, that you can interact with us. At any time you can send your question and answers, questions, or perhaps some answers. Why not, into in Q&A, or also into the message. And I know, thank you, Celine, that you make a so great job to send to the people the message is that they can connect with us. So don't hesitate to do so. We will be so glad with Dr. Michelle Peticolas to respond, to interact with you, even if we don't see you, knowing that in the energy, we can feel your presence. Don't hesitate to allow yourself to raise your hand. And I also thank Nikki, that we can see the little N here. Nikki is our translator, so that the French community can also listen to us in French in direct, and also when they will listen to the replay. So Michelle, you are translated, we are translated in French directly, thanks to Nikki, who is with us also right now.
Oh my gosh, Nikki,
Yeah.
I was so impressed by your ability to do that. I mean, especially since I'm an American and we speak really fast. And I originally came from the East Coast where we speak even faster. Now I'm in the West Coast, so I try and speak a little slower. I also came from a large family where if you wanted to get your word in edgewise, you had to speak really fast.
I'm sure that Nikki will enjoy that you mentioned that, and she's amazing. She's doing a great job. So I'm very happy that we have also the chance, to introduce you and your work to our French communities and from around. So yeah, that's such a pleasure. So you mentioned that. So being in touch, getting in touch, going to the contact with the audience. So we don't see you, but you can manifest yourselves. Don't hesitate to do so. Yes. So, Michelle, would you
Yeah.
like to tell us a little bit more about this program of yours, Second Chance Secrets? How did it come to you, and what it is? How did you structure, and whose people can gain from your program?
It has been an evolution as I evolved through my own journey. My programs evolve. So the first program I offered was called Release Your Grief and Thrive. And I was focusing on people who were dealing with grief because my wake-up call, which I didn't explain to you in my
Oh,
journey,
yes.
I was in the spiritual community, but the real wake-up call was when my parents died. They died 6 months apart. And there is something just so deep and profound about having your parents die and realizing that you die and realizing, oh, I'm only going to be here for a short time. I mean, it's limited, right? So I need to make the most of it. And that was the big wake up call that made me realize that I needed to live according to what I wanted. You know what? I didn't even know what I wanted. I had no idea because I had never thought about it. If you're busy out there pleasing people, you don't ever even ask yourself, what do I want? It's like, well, what do they want? So it has been a journey. And the first thing I wanted to do was to make a film series about death. Well, actually, I wanted to just make a film, and it morphed into a film series. And so I made a film series to help people wake up to this short but glorious life that we have and to use it.
Oh, I love that.
And then it became clear to me that just going to see a film was not enough, that it actually takes practice, it takes time to change. And that's when I decided to become a coach. I actually worked with people around grief and loss in hospice for, I don't know, 5 or 6 years. And then I stepped into being a coach and having my own business. And I did that for a long time. But now with a second chance, I want to go past the grief because the grief can be a doorway. I want to go past the grief to what's next. What does grief wake me up to? Like, what did grief wake me up to? It woke me up to my life. It can wake you up too. Or you can get stuck in the past, or you can get stuck in trying to recreate the past and you don't move forward.
Yeah, and it brings me this question: how can we feel for someone who is perhaps stuck into grieving, but sometimes we may not realize it? It can be for the loss of a loved one, or for the loss of a job, or for the loss of I don't know, a house. Of course, why not? So,
Yes,
loss
a
of,
house. I
yeah,
worked with a woman recently who had lost a house.
ah,
She had sold
yeah,
it, she intended to, but it evoked deep grieving in her. One of the things that I do, I had a woman come to me. She was actively, like tears coming out of her eyes, actively grieving the loss of her husband for 20 years. And the problem was that she had a son who reminded her of her husband. So every time she saw him, she started grieving. We cleared that up in less than a month.
wow,
And how did I do that? I
yeah,
created the space for her to grieve because most of us are taught we're supposed to repress our feelings. Oh, don't get too emotional. Oh, don't
to
let that out.
restrain, to constrain.
If you let it out, oh my God, you'll never get that back in the bottle again. You'll be swept away. We are afraid that we're going to be swept away from our feelings. And so we exert all this energy, literally muscular energy, holding our emotions in. And it has effects on your body. It really makes your body.
Yeah, on the body and the mind, and also the mind. We may not be aware that in our choices, probably unconsciously, of course, the choices are made on a certain spirit level, a certain mindset, which is not the normal one. If the mindset is still dealing with grieving, so the choices are not based on a specific perspective of life. So yeah, how can we feel, Michelle, that we may be stuck into a grieving of something? What could be the effects that we can feel in ourselves?
What are the effects if you are stuck in grieving?
Yes, and we may not realize it.
Okay, so oftentimes if you have learned to repress your feelings, you don't feel anything at all, but you might feel numb. You might feel disconnected from your body because that's where it's holding it. What happens is that people find methods, practices that distract themselves from their emotions. And there are numbers. They're kind of like not necessarily soothing, although they could be soothing, but they distract us from our feelings. So one, of course, is drugs and drinking, TV, computer games, Facebook, getting those likes. And one of them, probably one of the most awful ones, because you don't realize it, is workaholism, is being busy all the time, being driven. Because the universe, the world, the culture celebrates us. Hey, great, keep it up. But meanwhile, we are preventing ourselves from feeling. And if you work all the time, and in addition, we have been conditioned so that when we're working, we actually get chemical hits like dopamine because people are approving of us, and or we have associated being busy with being the good girl or being safe. And so there's actually a chemical physical response to being busy that's soothing. For example, if I get agitated, if I have an argument with my husband, for example, cleaning up the kitchen is a really, really great way to self-soothe.
Well, it's very smart. It's logical. Yeah. I like it. So yes, indeed, because sometimes it's not easy to recognize when someone can be stuck or doesn't is still in the process of grieving, and sometimes we may, ask the person, "But why don't you do that?" Or how is it that you you are still on that in that particular attitude, or but perhaps the person cannot do differently because he's still somewhere lost with I don't know, the negative feelings or the sadness, or and so it does not help to be in the sense of acting, making new projects, for example. Sometimes, yeah, we are in a world that we most of the time we need to perform, we need to be creative, we need to have new projects all the time. Otherwise, it's a kind of busyness of this world today. And is there a specific advice you could give to us when we are with someone who is still into the grieving process? How can we act, us as loved ones, family members or friends? How can we act with people who are still dealing with grieving to not make worse?
Right. Well, there's this little fine line that you have to navigate. That is, you want to be open and listen to them, because oftentimes people need to allow their feelings. That is, in fact, is the way in which I worked with people around grief and loss. The first thing I did was I created that space and I said, yes, you can grieve, let it out. And what I found was that when people actually are given permission and take the permission to grieve, the emotions release in 2 minutes or less.
Oh, wow.
What causes the flooding, what causes the continuation of the grief is the thoughts.
Uh-huh.
It is our thoughts that recycle it over and over and over again. We think about, oh my gosh, I'm always going to be this way. Oh my gosh, I'm never going to see my loved one again. And oh, if only I did something else. Oh, and these are the thoughts that reproduce the grief over and over again. But if you actually focus on the emotion and allow the emotion to just release, and that's what happened with that woman, is that she had never given herself permission to grieve. And so once she actually grieved, it was like she stopped because she no longer needed to, because she had finally allowed, there's an emotional energy there.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get a little scientific for a moment.
Please.
So grieving is a lot, it's part of our survival system. We have this survival system of fight, flee, freeze. And chemicals are released in our body to enable us to do one of those three things. Well, when we grieve, the same chemicals are released in our body. And when we don't release the energy of that, and so that the chemicals can be flushed out of the system, it gets stuck in our cells. It gets stuck in our body. And it doesn't go away, and it's still there. So when you finally get the permission to grieve and you let the tears out and you let the emotion out, catharsis. It's just this feeling of release, and it's amazing. Now, that doesn't mean that you're never going to grieve again. I mean, I'll work with you one day and then there are many layers and there are many levels, but it's developing that practice that when you feel, when you're agitated, when you're angry, when you're upset, that you create that space to release that emotion, but in a way that you don't recycle it again and again.
Yeah. And what I hear from you is that you also allowed this person to be seen and felt as someone who had to grieve. So it's a kind of, I see you.
Yes.
And then, so it is, I realize how important it is for someone to be understood at the level they are. And so it helps them. Sometimes it's just what someone may need is to be seen and felt that it is hard. Yes, it's not easy, but just to be understood in this state, and what we don't lead them to, okay, it's time to move on. No, I've not been recognized into my sadness or my difficulties. And then what I hear is that this person was seen by you where she was exactly, and it helped her to, oh, I'm understood. And probably then it allows to move forward. And this is what I like very much about your accompaniment, that to take the time to, you said, to create the space for the person. So it's really taking care. It's not pampering, but it's really taking care and say, go ahead. I see you. I see what you need.
Yes, exactly. And you made a really important point, which I hadn't made, which is what human beings are. We're social. And we are literally, so more science, we are biologically programmed to bond with each other. And so being able to have somebody be there and be a witness and see you and allow you to be totally freely what you are in this moment is huge. And that it answers your question is yes, when somebody is grieving, can you allow them, try not to fix them, but allow them to be exactly where they are. But at the same time, you have to develop this ear that knows the difference between when somebody is actually grieving and when they're getting into their story of misery. Because the grieving is when the emotion comes out, and you can tell because they're totally, the tears come out, and it's just like this release. but when they get in, it's this switch, and suddenly they're talking about instead of experiencing. You have to pull them back into, so how did that feel? Or how does that feel right now? Oftentimes I will take my clients into their body and say, where is that happening inside you right now? What do you notice? Notice your body. Stop the talk, stop the monologue. Where are you feeling that in your body? And then they get focused back on the sensation, and then they can get back into the feeling.
Oh, thank you so much. It's so wise. It's so wise. And then I'm sure it can help many people, because we are dealing with grieving all the time. And specific times were actually with this COVID, with this virus around the world. I mean, this is no longer the normal we know. So we need to deal with grieving also of a previous situation. So many people say we will never be back to the normal. So normal is a new normal right now. Meaning, so for some people, it's okay to move forward and it's okay to be in a new normal. For some, it can be a grieving, but it will no longer be the way we used to be with interactions. So and we lost a little bit, not a little bit, sometimes when we're in a lockdown, but the contact, the contact can be a hug, it can be, we have eye contact actually, and we can really connect together. Sorry. But for some people, it's also very important to have a physical contact. And it can also be a grieving sometimes, not having a physical contact or a hug of someone, feeling isolated socially and physically and emotionally. So I guess, did you mention for yourself that in your practice, you have more people who may come because of this international situation, because of a social isolation?
Maybe, but that also takes courage to decide, yes, I need help. Sometimes people go into this, well, remember I said fight, flee, freeze, this freeze, yes. This freeze response. And then they feel like they're not good enough and they're not worthy. And so they don't reach out. But that's the whole thing. The whole thing that you talk about, the pandemic, it's a big social experiment. Human beings are not used to being isolated like this.
Indeed.
And aren't the few of us who actually live in a community at home, like I have my partner, and our relationship has actually gotten better because I think it's driven by that need to have that connection.
Indeed. Yeah.
So the other people, I don't know if you've noticed, I've noticed this among the people that are alone, is that when they get on the phone or they get on a Zoom call, it's like they can't let it go because they're so hungry. And yet it's satisfying, but it's not completely satisfying. And this reminds me of the young children, the ones who've grown up with computers and texting, because a lot of them don't even know how to socialize because they have communicated all the time on their cell phones.
And the thing is to socialize. For them, it's socialization.
And that's so they may not even notice that they're being locked down. It's like, oh, hey, I'm safe to hide behind this little phone.
Oh yeah, I
don't have to be out
sometimes they don't feel. Oh yes.
I don't have to be bullied at school or anything like that, you know.
That's a great point, what you mentioned here. Indeed. Yeah, that's a great point, but probably also this year, we don't know how long it will continue. It may recalibrate also the social interactions. How will we deal with it? Hopefully that it can be a positive new departure into human interactions. But you mentioning bullying at school, I know it's a huge problem in many countries. And this is a huge point that you mentioned that. Do you have people who come to you, why not for a second chance secret, that maybe are the people who had to deal with not being accepted as they were, maybe bullied at school or maybe at the workplace or in personal life. Do you receive people who were not accepted as they were?
So I actually have 3 programs. One is kind of like self-study with a one-off session with me. And I've had amazing breakthroughs with people just in one session. So that there's a one-off there. Then I have a group program, and that group program is really about creating a new life for you, not necessarily creating a program for other people. It's not for coaches necessarily, although you could be, but it's really living your life more fully. And how can you create a second chance where you aren't intimidated or you're not crushed, but that you actually have the space to find out who you are. Some of the problems, Sophie, is that when we feel like we're not good enough, when we feel like we're not worthy, we can actually attract that response from other people.
Indeed.
And so it becomes this vicious cycle. We don't believe in ourselves, and so then they treat us a certain way. And I found that with my in my own relationship, with my own intimate relationship, as I grew in my power and strength and said what I needed, the relationship changed. I didn't have to change him. I just had to change me.
Yourself.
And so for many people, when you start feeling empowered, then people treat you differently.
Indeed, this is what I love very much about this, all these works, and we were mentioning, many people do mention that since 2012 we have much more tools, much more therapies that can help us to transform, and that we can have we can empower ourselves. And indeed, I like that you said that we don't need to change the people, but we need to change ourselves, and then our energetic fields does switch and then sends another message in the universe, and it does respond to us on the same frequency, the same level. So confidence attracts confidence, and lack of confidence does also attract lack of confidence. So yes, this is a response of the universe. I like much that you mentioned that. It's very important. We don't need to change other people. This is with ourselves that we need to deal.
Yeah. It's true. It's true. Well, the one of the most what is it? Unsuccessful things you can ever try and do is try and change somebody else.
Yes. Indeed. Michelle, so how can people, what can people expect from your Second Chance Secret program?
Yes, so you did ask me that, so we're back to that. Thank you. You're so good. Okay, so there's the one-off, there's the group program, and then there is the VIP program. And the VIP program there are actually two. One, if you want to do just working on yourself, I do have a VIP for people who want the extra attention or they need to deal with things that they don't feel comfortable with in group.
Mm-hmm.
But I also have another program which is designed, it is sort of a certification in the modalities and practices that I teach people, but then it's their specific journey. So that becomes their program. Is anything that works for you, that's yours. Because each of us have our own ways of adapting or developing. And so what your journey is, that's your program. And so I enable those speakers or motivational speakers that have had some life transformation to be able to package that in a program that really makes a difference.
Oh, I love that. Meaning you help people also to create their own programs.
That's right. And it's their program. It isn't that they've become a clone of me, because that's not what I'm about. That's not what the Aquarian age is about. It's about being your own unique self and what worked for you. And here I have a toolbox that's full of things. What works for you? How do you evolve? And then let's put that into a program that represents who you are, because each of us is individual. Each of us has our own fingerprints.
And our own message coming from our fingerprints. Yes. And so you do facilitate the emergence into people to create their own program.
That's
right. And I love that. And how do they start the journey? For how long? Let's say it's more a matter of duration, because this is also we need also to discover, and otherwise there will be no longer a surprise. But let's say, how long can the people take the journey with you?
So the group program is a year. The
Mhm.
VIP program comes with the group program,
Yes.
and you can either do it right away in 4 months, the VIP, and continue with the group program, or you can spread it out depending on, whether you can pay the whole amount at once or you want to spread it out over a year. So it's up
Mhm.
to what works for the individual. But the VIP program is private sessions with me, private working through whatever issues are there, and also helping to develop that your program. What is it going to look like? How are you going to organize it? How does it create that journey for your clients?
Mhm.
So that's what I do. And as I said, it could be really short, and you could continue with the group program just to continue to support you over that time,
Yes.
or you can spread it out throughout the whole year.
Mm.
Why a year? Because it takes a long time to change. It takes practice. It's like, building muscles. It's like
Yes. I like this
working on your
metaphor.
body. It takes time. I give the example of I was working with an Alexander professional. Do you know the Alexander method? It's a way of aligning your body
Mhm.
and teaching those muscles to align in a different way, teaching yourself to become aware of the way in which you hold your body. Part of the Alexander method is releasing all muscles that don't need to be activated to do what you're doing right now.
Ah, so it's very smart. Mhm. I love
So
that.
then you're not using nearly as much
Ah,
energy. But then if you feel your body right now, okay, where am I holding? Where am I
ooh.
tensing? Okay.
Ah, yeah. Ah, it's better already.
Yes, but we do that, we habitually and automatically. So now you want to start changing. So so I've been working on my posture, but I forget, and it goes right back into whatever the posture
Yeah.
is. Okay, let's get that posture back again. And then pretty soon you're sliding back into
Indeed.
it again. And when
Good.
you realize how long it takes for you to develop that habit, then you understand that the same is true, whether it's a mental habit, like the mental habit, right? The mental
Yes.
habit of, do you think you're going to be successful in what you're about to do? Or are you telling yourself, no, I'm going to screw up? Or do you spend all
Yeah.
your time,
The
and that
internal
habit?
dialogue. Internal dialogue is has a huge power, a huge influence on us. We are unfortunately not so much aware of it. So because it is also the sum of probably things that we received, perhaps people who didn't want to hurt us, but who said things that were not so nice and or not constructive for us, and it creates a package, and then so it rules. It's like a disc again. We come back to the circle. Yes, the internal dialogue is huge, and most of the time when we start to feel whose voice is that?
Yes,
We may be surprised about that question.
and
Ah,
sometimes the dialogue is so subtle you don't even realize that you're going into this situation thinking, oh, I'm not going to be successful, oh, I'm not going to meet anybody that I really want to meet, oh, and it's so subtle you don't even realize it, that it develops, it takes time to develop that
yes,
awareness. For
awareness.
example, I was doing yoga this morning, as I do every morning. And there's a difference between just going through the process and actually experiencing the sensation of this stretch, being in that moment of that
Mm,
experience,
I
but
love
not pushing, but actually feeling, what does that feel like? How does that feel to release into it?
that. Hmm.
And that, of course, is like meditative practice.
Yeah, I was almost to mention that when you said it is like building a muscle to go into the change when you are a certain way and then up we go back to that and then up we go a certain way. So to find a balance, and then it takes time and it takes practice, and it makes me think about mindfulness. And I know, Michelle, a little bit that you have your own practice of mindfulness, probably with different ways of integrating mindfulness into your daily life. It's kind of art. of lifestyle, I must say. And would you like to share with us, so probably what are your practices and as a mindfulness, or your practice as mindfulness? You mentioned yoga, indeed.
Oh, yes, yes. So
Yes.
I walk every day. I do yoga every day. I meditate. I mean, my morning routine takes, I get up at 5:30 and I don't usually start until 8:30 my work. So
Wow.
that's 3 hours of doing various things. And it's all about, well, I take care of my body. And for some reason, even though I was living in my head, I always took care of my body. It's like at a certain level, I knew that this was my vehicle through this three-dimensional plane, and I wanted to take care of it the best I could. Now I take care of it even better, because as you get older, you realize you really have to take care of your body, or, it's not gonna last. But I
Yeah.
wanted to suggest
Mhm.
one other idea, which is really radical. And that is, we're never going to get this right, ever going to get it perfect. And that is okay. In fact, maybe some of those things that we learned to protect ourselves or to push us are actually necessary for us to get done what we're here to do. It's like, maybe you don't get rid of everything. You don't sand all the roughness off the grain of wood, that you leave some texture.
I love that. I love that. This is a beautiful way of sending a beautiful message to our people, and also what we can also remember from you is that there is always a second chance. Always a
Yes.
second chance. So we always have the possibility to start again and then try again, and that we can be accompanied for that if when we feel it can be a good thing to evaluate, because this is true. We don't always know how to do the things when we have examples, but perhaps we don't have the example of what we want to become. And from switching from this famous stress or flight, fight or fight effect, as you mentioned, so to creative side, to creative space, it can take time. Sometimes we need to be accompanied. We need to find support, and then so we can really go into how can I create another me? Why not? Sometimes we need to recreate ourselves. Why not? It's always possible to do so. So second chance, and we will remember from you. So you have a secret for creating second chances. And I know that people can have a chance to reach out with you. They can find you, of course, on the healingwithfamilytree.com. There is a page specifically with you, all the social medias and your books that people can find back. And also, we will send the replay, because I know that some people, due to the time zone, they will watch a replay, of course,
They will
in
have to
America. Yes,
replay, because most of us really don't want to stay up in the middle of the night. I mean,
yes. I
that's
understand.
biological. We want to sleep at certain times. I know some people do stay up, and maybe as we become more a global community, we will become more flexible about our sleeping.
Yes, it's very possible. Why not? Well, we know that the sun is doing a good effect on us. So we also want to need to be with the normal cycle, the natural cycle of nature. And
Yes.
it's true that being in this new digital world, that sometimes we may not realize that, oh, maybe it's dark side outside. But this is the positive effect, is that there is less barrier, meaning you are in California, actually. I'm in French Alps. We have some people from Canada who do listen to us, and people will take a replay from other countries. You have your community who is around the world. Isn't it beautiful that we can take the best of this digital new world, and then we can still be in touch with the natural cycle? And this is where you mentioned that the body has its own agenda.
Yes.
So sometimes we can align our agendas, and I'm so grateful that we're able to align our agendas to have you with us on this summit, Michelle. It's such a joy.
Thank you so much, Sophie.
Thank
It
you
was
very much.
really a pleasure to spend this time with you and to share the things that are evolving in my own understanding of what it means to have this life journey, this human adventure.
This human adventure, indeed. Oh, the last thing, I know that as you mentioned the documentaries, would it be possible that if when people want perhaps to watch your documentaries, where they can find it perhaps, is there a place online that they can find your documentaries?
Right now, they do exist in cyberspace, but they're passcode protected. But that's
Okay.
a really good point. If somebody is particularly interested to reach out to me, I could probably work out something. The last time I did offer them, they were, I offered it for $10 to stream the film.
There is a stream. Oh, good.
Yeah, so they can always stream those. And I don't know whether Canopy was my streaming distributor, whether they are still offering that on libraries. I know that
Okay.
Canopy exists in a number of libraries, and that could be free. And I know that there were people who were looking at my videos on Canopy, so that's another option. But if you can't find it, reach out to me. Oh,
Okay.
my email is MP Michelle Peticolas.
We will write it down in the same time.
Okay.
So MP
At secretsoflifeanddeath.com. And the and is spelled out.
So I will send it to our people now, and you will tell me if I spell it right. Let me know. So in the discussion. MP at secretsandlife.com.
Secrets of life and
Secrets
death.
of, this is Secrets of Life.
And death. That's where, that's my email. Okay, so I have not created an email with Second Chance Secrets. Perhaps I should do that, but Secrets of Life.
Okay. Do you want perhaps to take to write it down to the people, and just also to let know during that time that all the information about Michelle Peticolas, Dr. Michelle Peticolas, are on the bio page on killingthefamilytree.com, and we will continue the conversation on the social media via the Facebook page. When the replay will be available, we will send a message to you. And again, thank you, Michelle. Yes, secretsoflifeanddeath.com. Thank you. And then so you and Celine put the website page with your bio on healingthefamilytree.com. Thank you so much, Celine. And yes. Celine, she's the one who chose for you this, this birth cake. We had a candle in the beginning, but yes, she chose for you this birth cake this morning. For you,
so I want to know what it is.
This is a kind of apple. This is sweet because this is a dessert, but this is sweet. This is an apple. This is a cake. And then, of course, I just send you the intention that it looks delicious.
It does.
And we will share it, thinking of you and sending you intentions that wish you the best for you. And it was such an honor and pleasure to have you with us. It's indeed difficult to end a conversation with you, and we look forward to having you again, and to give the opportunity to the French community as well to learn more about you. There will be soon another summit someday. I will be so happy to invite you again.
Oh, well, that would be lovely. It would be lovely if we had just a few more hours that would meet
yes,
California time. But
yes.
I did promote all over the place for your event, and I will, once you get it up online, I will promote again so that people will reach out to listen.
Oh, thank you
Will
so
they
much.
still be able, or will it only be available for people who have already registered by now? Is that the case?
So that was a possibility for the replays, indeed, to send to everybody who did register.
Mhm.
Some could not watch in the day, of course, a time zone, and some were also at work. So
Yes.
the replay will be available to everybody who did register, and each of the panelists, let's say, it's the way it is called the speakers will also receive, of course, the replay, and then you
Oh,
can also
right. Yes,
spread
that would
into
be
your
great.
community
Yes.
directly. Indeed, of course, I will send you everything information to the audience and to you and all the speakers, and that we can spread the word, because that's our intention. Spread the word, information, resources. We want people to be happy. The planet needs hope and inspiration, and we are so happy that we shared with you today hope and inspiration. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you so much, Sophie. Have
Yeah,
a great have a great rest of the time in your summit. Have a really excellent final
thank
day.
you very much. We do welcome your intentions very gladly. Yes.
All right. You
Have a
take care.
beautiful end of the day for you.
Thank you. I will. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye to all of you. See you tomorrow morning when we'll start tomorrow morning with yoga session with Carolina. So let's meet together tomorrow morning, French time, 9 a.m. And you will have an online session with Carolina, beautiful session. Tomorrow, she will represent the voice of the body and the breathing. Have a beautiful evening, everybody, and talk to you soon.